Dear students, once again I would like to welcome all of you to a new session of the history class. Today we are going to wind up the topic which we were discussing from the last few number of classes. Since this is the last part of this chapter, let's go to the points. Chapter number 9, Independence and Partition of India, Part 3. Do you remember what we were discussing in the last classes? Before we move to the topic, let's remember the points which we were discussing in the last class. First of all, we were discussing about Lord Mountbatten, and we have seen he has got appointed as the Viceroy of India in 1947, and the reason behind his appointment in India as the Viceroy was to take the necessary steps for the transfer of power. So this was the main reason behind the appointment of Lord Mountbatten, and Lord Mountbatten has introduced a plan, the plan which is being known as Mountbatten Plan, and we were seeing the different provisions according to the Mountbatten Plan. So these were the main points which we were discussing in the last class, and today we are going to see the remaining points of this same chapter. Do you remember what was the first chapter of our syllabus? First War of Independence, 1857. From there, we were seeing a number of events which had taken place in the history of India, which resulted in the freedom of our country. Which means from 1857 to 1947, near about 90 years of struggle for the freedom of our nation. So from the first War of Independence, 1857, there we have seen different phases of the national movement and different phases of the growth of nationalism, different strikes and struggles under the leadership of number of leaders, and finally we have seen Quit India movement, and today we are going to reach our goal. That's about the freedom, that's about the independence of our nation. So today we are going to conclude the Indian national movement with the Indian Independence Act 1947, which means finally India is becoming free with the particular act agreed by the British by 1947, July 1st. So dear students, let's see the different points, the different provisions which resulted in the freedom of our country. Lord Mountbatten came to India to speed up the process of transferring power from Britain to India. In order to implement all the different procedure or different rules and regulation, he has put forward a plan which is being known as Mountbatten Plan. Both Congress and all other political parties, including Muslim League, they have approved the Mountbatten Plan. So the next step was about the transfer of power, and the transfer of power from Britain to India actualized through a particular procedure, and that particular procedure is being known as Independence Act 1947. So once the Indian Independence Act 1947 implemented, which means India became free from the clutches of Britain. So let's see a few number of points with related to the Indian Independence Act 1947. After a number of study and discussion, the Indian Independence Act was introduced in the House of Commons by the Prime Minister of Britain, because they have to give approve, then and only the British administration can transfer power from Britain to India. So this particular act has introduced in the House of Commons by the Prime Minister of Britain, and it has got accepted and passed on 1st of July 1947. Now let's see what were the important provisions according to the Indian Independence Act 1947. 2 new dominions, provisions of partition, Governor General for each dominion, Constituent Assembly as the central legislature, end of jurisdiction of the British Parliament, princely states, treaties and agreements, division of the army and the assets, bringing the act into operation, and finally office of Secretary of State and interest of existing offices. Let's see all those provisions in detail. First of all, two new dominions. As per the demand of the Muslim League, India will be divided into two independent dominions, two different countries. First one will be knowing as India and the other will be Pakistan. The second point says that legislative supremacy for both dominions, which means both the countries have all the powers to implement, to make laws, implement it and run the country according to their rules and regulation. Legislative supremacy for both dominions, which will be effective from August 15, 1947. Third point says that Pakistan comprises Sindh, British Balochistan, Northwest Frontier Province, the West Punjab and East Bengal. So these provinces will be, or these areas will be coming under Pakistan, and the remaining parts of India, which means India was to comprise all the remaining territories included in the British India. So this is how India has got divided into India and Pakistan, but still have added one more clause. It was saying that exact boundary decision will be taken by Boundary Commission. You might be knowing about Boundary Commission. When we were discussing about Mountbatten Plan, one of the clauses according to the Mountbatten Plan told formation of Boundary Commission, and the Boundary Commission will be deciding the exact boundary of both the countries or both the dominions. Now let's see the second provision according to the Indian Independence Act 1947, that is provisions of partition. Muslim League demanded for Pakistan with an interest of making a Muslim nation. So that's why they have asked for a favor from the British. So as per the demand of the Muslim League, the British administration had given a concern to the people of Bengal and Punjab, because these regions were popular for its Muslim majority. So Bengal and Punjab to be divided if the people wanted. So if the people demand only, those regions can be divided. And how the interest of the people will be checked? For that, meeting of provincial assemblies were decided, and they will be meeting separately, which means the districts which were having Hindu majorities will be meeting separately, and the districts which were having Muslim majority will be meeting separately. So separate meetings of provincial assemblies were arranged, and on the basis of that the people can make their decision, and if they demanding to be divided into two, or if they are demanding that their region also should be divided and can be joined with any of the dominions. So that was about the provisions of partition. And again, Northwest Frontier Province, Shiloh District and East Bengal, these regions has got a chance to decide whether they have to join in Pakistan or in India. And for that, the method they have chosen was right to cast a vote. The people will be casting their vote, and according to the number of the peoples, or according to the interest of the people, the decision will be taken. But in fact, Northwest Frontier and West Bengal, both these provinces has joined in Pakistan. Now let's move to the third provision, Governor General for each dominion. A Governor General to be appointed by the British King on the advice of Cabinet of the concerned Dominion, which means for both India and Pakistan there will be a Governor General, separate Governor Generals will be appointed, one for India and one for Pakistan, and it will be appointed by the British King on the advice of the Cabinet of the concerned Dominion, because already a Constituent Assembly was functioning on India under the leadership of the British, and once India is becoming free means they will be having a cabinet. So along with the advice or on the advice of the Cabinet of concerned Dominion, a Governor General will be appointed by the British, and it will last till the framing of the Constitution. So the Governor General will be having the powers till the Constitution completes its framing. So that was the Governor General for each dominion, the provision according to the Indian Independence Act 1947. And the fourth one says that Constitution Assemblies to serve as central legislature. Central legislature means the Union Parliament. Right now in India we have a Union Parliament. What is the responsibility? What is the duty of the Union Parliament? They are making laws. That means legislature. So Constitution Assemblies, which were already existing in India during 1947 when India was about to get freedom from the British. So they will be functioning exactly like central legislature. Constituent Assembly as central legislature. So they will be having all the powers to make laws and implement it, and act as sovereign bodies, means they will be functioning as a powerful and effective bodies which can control the entire nation, which can rule the entire nation. According to the provision of the Indian Independence Act 1947, it also makes an end of jurisdiction of the British Parliament, which means legislative authority of British will cease on 15th August, or in other words, the power to make rules for India will be ceased, which will be ending from 15th August onwards, because on 15th India will become free from the British. So according to the Indian Independence Act, India will be free, and British legislative will not be having any power to make rules for India from 15th August onwards, or it will be coming to an end on 15th August. Again, titles of Emperor of India and King of England to be dropped. These titles were carried by the rulers of Britain. Since India is free from the Britain, why India has to carry these kinds of titles? And again, India became free from the British. At the same time, India became a complete democratic country. In a democratic country, what is the role of Emperor and King? So that's why it was a decision according to the Indian Independence Act 1947, titles of Emperor of India and King of England to be dropped. And it also advocated that till new constitution is framed, they are to be governed by Act of 1935. They means both the provinces, that means India and Pakistan, both the dominions will be ruled or governed by Act of 1935. Act of 1935 was a set of rules introduced by the British in order to rule our country, in order to administrate our country. So till the new constitution is framed, India and Pakistan will be governed according to the Act of 1935. Governor General has the freedom to modify the Act of 1935 by March 31st, 1948. Which means Governor General has the freedom to choose or reject the Act of 1935, because he has got all the power. And the next point will be more clear to you. Right of the king to veto laws was given up and given to Governor General. That means England has made or given all the powers to take decision about India to Governor General. So he can choose or modify the Act of 1935 by March 31st, 1948. And all the powers of the king has given up, and all those were given to the Governor General of India. India means for both the provinces. The Governor of India will be having power over India, and the Governor of Pakistan will be having the power over Pakistan. From the beginning of the Indian national movement, we might be hearing this term princely states. So here the British people were having a concern towards the princely states. Princely states will be independent. That means they also will be free, because still then princely states were the ruling system which functioned directly under the British, or in other words, the people who were always getting the concern, the favor of the British. In return, the princely states were very loyal to the British. So that's why British people were always having a concern towards the princely states. And they have declared by the Indian Independence Act in 1947, princely states will be independent, and powers exercised by the British to be seized on August 15th, which means what all different powers were exercised by the British will be terminated from 15th August onwards, especially the rules and regulations which implemented on princely states. All treaties and agreements to be lapsed. The treaties and agreements which made between the princely states and the British, and again they have got the freedom to join either the dominions or to remain independent, which means they can join either India or Pakistan. There is an option, and they have got a third option also. That means they can remain independent. They can become an independent country. So that was the option given to the princely states. Now the seventh provision says about the treaties and agreements. British government has no responsibility on India from August 15th onwards, which means with effect from August 15th onwards, the British Parliament or the British royal lineage will not be having any responsibility or right on India. And treaties and agreements between British government and Indian rulers will be lapsed on August 15th, because there were a number of treaties and agreements between Indian rulers and the British. So all those agreements and treaties will be cancelled with effect from August 15th onwards. Eighth provision, according to the Indian Independence Act 1947, is about the division or promising about the division of army and assets between two dominions, means between India and Pakistan. Because before the division there were no two countries, instead there were only one country. But now, since there were two different countries, all the assets should be divided into two. Assets like division of the army, then share the assets. Enough steps were taken by the British administration in sharing the assets between the two dominions, and share the liabilities, responsibilities and other different factors. So necessary steps were taken by the British administration in division of army and assets. And the ninth provision says that bringing the act into operation. By July 1st, 1947, the British Parliament has accepted the Indian Independence Act. Now it has to bring, or the act has to bringing the act into operation. They have to actualize it. In order to actualize the act, the responsibility was given to the Governor General. Governor General has the power to bring the Indian Independence Act into operation. So finally, the Indian Independence Act, or the independence of our nation, will be possible along with the support of the Governor General, cabinet members, as well as the Constituent Assembly. So all the responsibilities of bringing the Indian Independence Act into operation was vested with the Governor General of India. And finally, the last provision according to the Indian Independence Act 1947, Office of Secretary of State and existing officers. According to the 10th provision, there were necessary steps to safeguard the interest of the existing officers, which means Office of Secretary of the State has appointed a number of officers. Even though the Office of the Secretary of the State was abolished, the British administration has taken enough steps to safeguard the interest of those officers who were appointed by the Office of the Secretary of the State. So these were the different provisions according to the Indian Independence Act 1947. So dear students, I hope you have got a very clear picture about the Indian Independence Act 1947, which means by this particular act, India got freedom legally from the British. So today we are winding up the class here, and with this we are completing this chapter 2, and I hope that you have got a very clear picture about what we have studied today. In the next class, I'll be coming up with a new topic. Till then, I would like to sign off. Thank you.